Can I request you all to please switch off your mobiles so that we can enjoy the program? I also request Shubha Sanjay Ars, curator, Mysuru Literature Festival, to please accompany Geetanjali Shree onto the stage, who will be in conversation with Sita Bhaskar.
Oh, I did have a bag. Well. Nice to meet you, fine. Nice to meet you too. I don't like so much light on me, but never mind. क्या हुआ? इतनी light नहीं अच्छी लगती. I know. अच्छा, the mic is disappeared. It's with you. Why? If I have to do a reading, I like to stand. Is there time on top? Okay. Okay. It is my honor. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor to introduce Geetanjali Shree, winner of the 2022 International Booker Prize for her novel Red Samadhi, translated into English as Tomb of Sand. If her first novel, Mai, shot her into fame in the Hindi literature world, the Booker Prize of Red Samadhi has made her famous the world over and rekindled an interest in many readers to read it in Hindi. Known for her very unique style of writing with a deft touch of humor, Geetanjali's use of almost extinct names of food, colloquial proverbs, metaphors, and imagery makes even the walls and crows as important characters in her latest novel. She has published several other novels, such as Hamara Seher Us Par, Tirohit, and Khali Jagah, to name a few. Starting to write in the 1980s, she began with short stories, the first one being published in the popular Hindi magazine Hans. Since then, 5 collections of short stories and a few non-fiction works, including an intellectual biography of Premchand, have been published. Many of her works have been translated into French, German, and English, and some are part of coursework in several universities abroad. Geetanjali's list of awards and honors are long, and many of us would have read about these. Hence, I would like to mention her work for theatre here. She is the founder of a theatre group, Vivadi, and has written several scripts for the group. She adapted Tagore's Gora and Ghore Baire, which was staged in Delhi in the most popular theatre, Kamani Auditorium. She wrote the play Naika Bheda, and her adaptation of the Chinese play, The Ninth Born by Kyo Pao's Kun, has been staged in Tokyo. One of her most successful adaptations has been Mirza Hadi Ruswa's Umrao Jan Ada, the story of a courtesan, and Geetanjali gave the play a radical feminist twist. It was performed to great acclaim in Calcutta, Mumbai, and Delhi. In Red Samadhi, the description of Beti's style of dressing, wearing colorful, baggy, saggy, mismatched clothing, and carrying a jhola, brought an image to my mind of a classmate in JNU. Could it be that the author too had in mind someone we both knew at the university when penning this character? Well, we'll leave it to Sita Bhaskar to explore this idea further with Geetanjali. Sita Bhaskar, who spends her time between Madison, Wisconsin, and Mysore, is an author of fiction and well known to those who have attended the Mysore Literature Festival in the past. She is the author of Flirting with Trouble, Shielding Her Modesty, and several other short stories. One of Sita's stories can be read in the Motherhood anthology, and someone just this morning sent me this about her story. Sita's story in Motherhood Anthology was a kick in the gut kind of story, and that too with such ease, no laboring, overthinking, or overwriting scenes. Sita is a minimalist, big drama creator. This is true of all her writings. Her epistolary novel Tara and Sandy, which she co-authored with Sabarna Roy from Calcutta, is scheduled for publication in September 2022. You will see the audio-visual presentation of this tomorrow. With this, may I request, if at the end there is going to be a question session, I request you all, those who would like to put a question, put it to Geetanjali, and please, a question only, no comments. With that, I give the floor to Sita.
Thank you, Meena. Sit down and relax. I think we have 4 hours. 4 hours, right? You said I could speak for 4 hours?
Sita, we all know once you start talking, you don't stop. All the best to everyone.
Touche, okay. Okay. Namaste, Geetanjali Shree, and a very good afternoon to you. I welcome you to the city of Mysuru.
Thank you.
And on behalf of the Mysuru Literary Forum and the Mysuru Book Clubs, welcome to Mysuru. To all our audience here today in person and those who are watching online, I know there's a very large contingent. Welcome to the first session of the Mysuru Literary Festival, and we hope you enjoy it. Please sit back. She says I have an hour, so let's do maybe 45 minutes and then take questions after that. तो आप आए मैसूर, पर मेरी हिंदी कमजोर.
कविता तो तेज है.
किसी ने लिखा, मैंने नहीं. अगर मुझे हिंदी अच्छी तरह आती तो हम अभी बातचीत हिंदी में ही कर सकते थे. लेकिन language is only a means of communication. So, yeah. So your writing shows that you have had fun writing this book. It comes across in every sentence, almost as if you laid this huge canvas on the clouds, dipped your feet in a medley of paint, and then danced over the clouds. So, can I invite you to read something for us today?
Okay, start with that. Can I read there?
Yeah. Can we have that?
Shall I read a bit in Hindi?
Yes, a bit in Hindi and a bit in English, whatever you're convenient.
Together?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So that we get the nuances.
Okay. So that you know the Hindi is better. That's not fair. I would not have got the Booker without the English.
For people like us, we need.
No, no. इसकी ज़रूरत है? Yeah, because I also have that. Doesn't matter. Thank you, Mysuru Literature Festival, for inviting me, giving me this chance to come to this beautiful city. It's utterly amazing how we forget absolutely, very banal things and the pleasure of those, of stepping out of the house or the car and getting a lovely cool breeze, come to you. It never happens in Delhi. You step out of the car, you step out of the house, and it's straight into a furnace which can toast you and roast you. So we'd completely forgotten this, and it's beautiful. Thank you. It's lovely to be with all of you. Thank you, Shubha, for chasing me up and finding me. I'm really very happy to be here, and I hope I'm very happy to meet you, Sita, and I think I'm happy to know that when you talk, you just talk. So I'm hoping I'll have a chance to be quiet. But I'll do the reading anyway, since you've asked me to. Like you said, it's a big book,
and it's not a single linear story, so it's very difficult to choose a bit which is going to tell you everything about the book. But I've chosen a little snippet about the family. And the family is somewhere at the center of the book, but the family is a microcosm of everything that goes on in the entire world. So all the politics and the sociology and all the tensions of the world are reflected in the family. So I'm just going to read a little account of the family and the daily bickerings. It's a description of the bickerings that go on in the family. Bickerings which are often, have no real meaning and no real consequence, but sometimes translate into something more serious. So I just want to read that out. First, a few minutes in Hindi, perhaps 2 or 3 minutes, and then in English. कहना चाहिए परिवार को, जबकि कहते हैं महाभारत को, कि जो दुनिया में वो उसमें और जो उसमें नहीं वो कहीं नहीं, कवि के तसव्वुर में भी नहीं। यानी भूला भटका आतंकवादी, गर्मा भरमा वामपंथी, नारीवाद और नारी, हरवादी और जीती हारी, सब परिवार में, या महाभारत में जिसे जैसे रुचे पचे। महाभारत में दुनिया, दुनिया परिवार में, और इसलिए परिवार में महाभारत, जो रोज़ रोज़ के हंगाम, हर एक महाभारत। इसलिए परिवार के हर सदस्य को पता है कि जो मुझ में वो किसी में नहीं, और जो मुझ में नहीं वो होने लायक नहीं। और ये कि मेरे पास दिमाग है, औरों के पास पैसा। और ये कि मेरा फ़ायदा उठाया सबने, अब हम नहीं बाकी करें। और ये कि हम दूर रह के भी रहम दिल, तुम वहीं हो पर कितने बेरुखे। और ये कि हमेशा हम ही देते हैं और आप हमेशा लेते हैं। और वाह आपकी सूझ जिसमें आप तो मिलनसार, हम वही तो मतलबी यार। आप चुप तो विनयशील, हम चुप तो काइयाँ। आप करें सो शिष्टाचार, वही हम करें तो लल्लो चप्पो। आप कहें तो साफ गोई, हम कहें वही तो बदतमीज़। हम पूछ लें तो अश्लील जिज्ञासा, आप पूछें तो हमदर्दी। हम करें तो हमारी सुविधा, आप करें तो आपकी कृपा। हम करें तो कंजूस, आप करें तो किफ़ायती। हम चुप तो घमंडी, आप चुप तो शर्मीले। हम तो बड़े सीक्रेटिव पर आप तो बस रिजर्व्ड। और हमारे फैशनेबल कपड़े नकल, आपके ज़माने से कदम ताल। और हमारा गया तो ऐसा क्या बवाल, आपका गया तो लुट गए हाय हाय। और हमने किया तो क्या किया, और आपका इरादा वो भी किया। यानी हम वो जो हमने किया, आप वो जो आपने सोचा। और हमने कहा तो कटाक्ष, आपने कहा तो मजाक। और हमने अपनी बताई तो मियाँ मिट्ठू, आपने बताई तो सहज सत्य। और हमने पा लिया तो हथियाया, आपने पाया तो आपका अधिकार। और हमने कहा तो हमारा गुमान, आपने कहा तो आप तो हैं ही सही। और हम गुस्साए तो ह्यूमर की कमी, आप गुस्साए तो आत्मसम्मान। और हम कर गए तो कर्तव्य था, आपने किया तो बड़प्पन हुआ। और हम सफल तो आपका सहारा जो मिला, और आप असफल तो हमने अड़ंगे जो डाले। और जी हम रह गए तो हम काहिल, आप रह गए तो आप त्यागी। और जी हम न समझे तो पैदल, आप नहीं तो भोले। और जी आपको हमसे वैर तो हम इसी लायक, हमको आपसे वही तो हम ईर्ष्यालु। और जी हमने किया तो स्वार्थ, आपने वही तो परमार्थ। और गर हम न करें तो बेपरवाह, मगर आप न करें तो मजबूरी। और हमने जितना किया सो कम, आपने ज़रा भी सो ज़्यादा। और हमारी नाक टेढ़ी तो बदसूरत, आपकी आँख टेढ़ी तो कलात्मक। और जी अपनी तस्वीर अच्छी तो फोटोग्राफर माहिर, आपकी अच्छी तो आप सुंदर। और जी हम गोरे तो छिली बटेर, आप सफ़ेद तो आप तो विलायती लगे। हम काले तो बैंगन भट्ट, जबकि आप काले तो ब्लैक इज़ ब्यूटीफुल। हम मोटे तो खाऊ पेटू, आप मोटे तो रौनक चमक। हम दुबले तो सूखी लकड़ी, आप सीख तो सौम्य सजिल। और हम चलाएं एसी तो अय्याश, आप चलाएं तो सेहत नाजुक। हम पिएं तो शराबी, आपने पी तो डॉक्टर की हिदायत। हमारी ज़बान अंग्रेज़ी तो शो ऑफ हम, आपकी तो शिक्षित आप। अच्छा, आपकी ज़रूरत तो हम एक परिवार, हमारी ज़रूरत तो आप अलग और अकेले। हम शरीफ तो मुलम्मा, आप वही तो ख़ानदानी, और जी आपका काम काम और हमारा काम तमाम। यस जी, नो जी, हम जी, तुम जी, और हम और तुम और तुम और हम और अम्मा, और इतना हमने किया, और तुम साथ होके न देखते, और बेचारी बुढ़ा गई और पड़ी रही और अकेली, और जानती भी नहीं क्या कर रही है, और नाम भी गलत सलत दे रही है, और दिमाग पर है असर, और सब के सब दौड़ पड़े। शुक्रिया। If you can bear another installment, I'll read out the English. Okay. So I'm reading out the same, well, I thought it's nice to read out what you might have got halfway familiar with. Anything we say about the Mahabharata could also be said about families. They contain all that exists in the world, and whatever they don't contain doesn't exist, not even in the imagination of a poet. That is, the gone astray terrorist, the hot-headed leftist, the female and the feminist, the everythingist and the opti-pessimist, all in the family, or in the Mahabharata, whichever you prefer. The world is in the Mahabharata, the world is in the family, and thus the Mahabharata is in the family. The daily flare-ups, each one a Mahabharata. For this reason, every member of the family knows that what exists in me exists in no one else, and what does not exist in me has no call to exist. And that I have the brain, others have the money. And that everyone has taken advantage of me, so from now on, I won't do anything, let the rest of them do it. And that I'm the most tender-hearted despite living far away, while you're right here, yet so completely inconsiderate. And I'm always the giver, and you're always the taker. And wow, your wheeling dealings are just because you're such a friendly soul. But if I do the same, I'm cold and calculating. When you are quiet, you're polite. But when I'm quiet, I'm wily. If you did it, it's good etiquette. If I do, it's fawning flattery. If you say it, it's candid. If I do, it's just rude. If I ask, it's obscene curiosity. When you do, it's sympathy. If I do it, it's for my own convenience. If you do it, you're most beneficent. If I do it, I'm being stingy. If you do it, you're being thrifty. If I'm quiet, I'm acting proud. If you are quiet, you feel bashful. I'm extremely secretive, but you are just reserved. And my fashions are four, whereas yours are cutting edge. And if I lose something, what's the big deal? But if you do, you've been robbed, woe is me. And if I do something, it amounts to nothing, but your merest intention of doing something amounts to actually doing it. That is, I am what I've done, you are what you've thought. And what I said was scornful, but when you said it, it was just a joke. When I said my piece, I was being a show-off, but when you had your say, it was the unvarnished truth. And if I got it, I grabbed it. But if you got it, it was your right. And when I'm angry, I'm humorless. But when you are, it's self-respect. And when I went and did it, it was my duty. But when you did, it was big of you. And when I'm successful, I got help from you. But when you are unsuccessful, it was me who threw a spanner in the works. And if I get stuck, I'm a slacker. But if you get stuck, you blew your chances. And oh yes, if I don't get it, I'm a moron. But if you don't, you're innocent. And oh yes, if you're enemies with me, I deserve it. But if I am with you, I'm jealous. And oh yes, if I did it, I'm self-serving. If you did, you are self-effacing. And if I don't do it, it's carelessness. But if you don't, it's helplessness. And however much I've done is not enough, and whatever little you did is plenty. And if my nose is crooked, it's ugly. And if your eye is crooked, it's artistic. And oh yes, if I look good in a picture, the photographer was gifted. But if you look good, it's because you're beautiful. And oh yes, if I'm fair, I look like a skinned quail. And if you are pale, you look like a foreigner. If I'm dark, I'm Mr. Eggplant Head. Whereas when you do, black is beautiful. If I'm fat, I'm Tubby Tupkins. If you're fat, you're pleasingly plump. If I'm thin, I'm dry as a stick. If you're skinny, you're svelte and shapely. And if I turn on the AC, I'm decadent. But if you do, you suffer from delicate health. When I drink, I'm a drunk. When you drink, doctor's orders. If speaking English, I'm giving myself airs. If you do, you're educated. Oh, and if you need it, we are all one big family. But when I need it, you are separate and alone. If I'm polite, it's pretentious. If you are, it's pedigree. If I live by the fruits of my labor, I'm a crudge drudge. But when you cling like a leech, it's a cultural custom. And yes, your work is the bee's knees, but mine's a hobby, if you please. Yes and no, no and yes, me and you and me, and you and I and Amma, and we did so much, and you were with her, but you didn't see, and the poor thing grew older, and she lay there and alone, and didn't even know what she was doing, and she's even forgotten, and inventing some imaginary names, and her memory is clearly affected, and everyone went running. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And this is what you see in the book, you know. It's something go on for probably a page or two without a stop. And it's almost like, it's like music. It's like you have shut out the world and you are singing to yourself. You know, that's what it feels like when you, and that is the English translation, so I can just imagine. Padna hi hai, but it will take some time to read. So when I was reading your book, I was caught up in the language. That's what we do normally. Na? And then, you know, the dhwani, as you say, if you will, we're drawn in very deftly, enticingly, with silken threads. And so I went up to about page 200 because I was admiring the language. And then I stopped and I thought, so I'll say this in Hindi and Kannada, Meri maa aapki kahani mein kaise ghus gayi? You know? Nammamma nim kateyalli heg ban serkondro. You know, how did my mother burrow her way into your story? So have you had that reaction from readers? And, you know, talk to us about the universal ma.
Actually, I have, and it's, I think, one of the most gratifying things for a writer to hear that, you know, I mean, on the one hand, a writer has vanity and wants to have, you know, done something or made something which is absolutely unique and nothing like it exists anywhere. It's vishwasniya, it's believable, but it belongs entirely to her, she hopes. But it never happens. And that is a beautiful discovery, you know, even for the writer, that what a lot of things which, you know, she thought she was inventing actually come from far and wide. And I get this response not only in India, I've also got this response from so-called other cultures. So the universality of one's work, you know, is really one of the best things to discover about it. And, you know, I think this is true about older women, that, you know, on the one hand, a lot of us think that they are now tired of life and ready to give up and just waiting for death. But I think it's equally true that there are elderly people, not just women actually, men as well, who have a lot of desire and spunk left and are, there's no reason that they feel they have to stop. And it's something humorous, ironical, sad, because they have all the spirit to go forwards, but their body is obviously, you know, becoming frail and is giving way. So it's, I think that's what makes the book both sad and humorous and a celebration at the same time. Yeah.
I think a celebration, yes, I think that's the word. Yeah, you know, and there's a large cast of characters in the book, but mostly there is no question that has not been asked of you. And so when we go and see YouTube videos, and then I come up with, what am I supposed to ask? Everybody knows everything, but everybody's talking about daughter, mother, माँ बेटी, लेकिन बुक में तो बड़े ब्रदर है और बहू डॉटर इन लॉ है और unnamed people wandering onto the pages telling the reader, I don't even know why I'm here. This isn't my story. There's no need for me to be here. I found that fascinating, and I was trying to find out who is that person who keeps coming. So talk to us about the large cast of characters, because even you, though you said, the family is just a microcosm, but all those characters are so interesting. And also both inanimate and animate characters.
You asked me a very vast question. I mean, to some extent, I'm responsible, or the book is
Book is
responsible,
responsible.
because it is such a large canvas. But some books get written with some very neat little idea of what one is trying to do, and then you go on that path, and the book evolves and it takes final shape. But sometimes there isn't that kind of clear single path. And I think this book, many different elements which I am not even fully consciously aware of, came together to make this book. So it's a kind of Mahagatha, in one sense it became. And it's really reflecting a whole world that is obviously outside me and around me, but is also inside me, and over the years that has been my world, a world full of polyphony and pluralism, a world full of the terrible things we are doing to the planet, a world full of the borders we had made and which we were trying to bridge. When the world opened up, we thought we were bridging those borders, and those borders have returned via new routes of violence and inequality and prejudice. So it was really this whole world which began to come together in this book. And obviously it is peopled with all kinds of characters. And I think there is a tendency that readers and critics have of trying to find frames. So mother and daughter is a very interesting frame, very meaningful frame, but, and a lot of people have responded very strongly to it. So they go to that theme a lot, the mother and daughter relationship, and then the daughter becoming the mother of the mother, and the mother becoming, like an adolescent who's rediscovering her youth and her body and her desires and so on. So I think that is a frame which appeals to a lot of them, and they talk a lot about it, and they miss out on these other characters because of that. And I feel very, it brings a glow to my heart that you've brought up Bade, because I think Bade, who's the eldest son in the family, and so he's very much a role, because he has to play the patriarch, and he has to be the authoritarian kind of figure, but actually he's not that at all. That is only a kind of garb which has been handed down to him through the centuries. So I think the vulnerability of Bade and the role model that he, or the peer pressure to be a certain way that he has to, live with. I mean, that I think is one of the, for me, one of the most heartrending things in the book, and a character that I feel very, very tenderly towards. The other characters that you say, I feel as the book went along and stories, kept coming into it and joining up or getting, going along as far as they felt they had a meaning in this narrative, and then stopping or dropping off because they didn't continue any further. I mean, they didn't seem to be needed any further. So this style of writing just kept continuing, and characters were doing the same. And I realized as a writer that there's nothing that happens in the world which will not be witnessed by somebody or the other. So if it's not you and me, it will be a character who happens to be going by at that time and sees something and maybe doesn't even fully understand what's going on because he's not part of that story. So this character who keeps coming in and saying, well, I don't belong to this, but this happened in front of me. I saw her pick up this glass of beer and I saw the rainbow dive into the beer.
Beer.
So he doesn't know what the implications of that might be and what it adds up to. We know in the entire narrative what implication that has. He doesn't, but he happens to be the witness who tells us that.
Correct.
And the inanimate things, when you are mentioning, I felt something similar was happening with the inanimate objects, like let us say the Grand Trunk Road, which comes into this novel. The Grand Trunk Road, which has been, there for centuries now, and has, it's a road made of whatever, I don't know what roads are made of, coal, plaster, jo bhi hota hai. And it's something inanimate, but a road which has seen so much history, occurring on it.
Yes.
Which there's sort of trade going on. Caravan guzar rahe hain udhar se, saraye hain dono taraf, saraye mein celebrations ho rahe hain, गाना बजाना हो रहा है, खून खराबा हो रहा है, लूट पाट हो रहा है. I mean, every kind of thing they've seen. And of course, during the partition, they've seen some of the worst possible inhumanities and atrocities. How can that road any longer be just an inanimate object? So it just cannot be. The road begins to, it is a witness, it feels, it is sad about the follies of humankind, and so on and so forth. So inanimate things also become live witnesses. That is how it just kept happening.
So actually, I'm going to jump ahead then, because I made these notes more like they said, I can't stop talking. So, so besides the strong elements of anthropology in your book, the story also reads like an archaeological dig, like when you say, no sooner do they reach down below the earth than old tales begin to rise up from the tombs. So did writing your book feel that way to you? You reach down to a page and it becomes a living thing. And so many tales begin to rise from the tomb.
Sure. I mean, I think it's in continuation of what I just said. That,
Yes.
In fact, that is how the name also came to me, Ret Samadhi. I mean, in English, I had a problem with them using the word tomb, because tomb is not quite Samadhi. But for me, it became that, nothing ever dies. We may try and, well, as we are trying today, to kill voices and finish off certain histories, but nothing ever dies, it goes into Samadhi. And it is a Samadhi of Ret. Ret is sand.
Yes.
So which means there's impermanence there. And a little, a breeze or anything else which is going to stir it up, and the story will re-emerge. So I think this is what the book kept doing, that stories which were lying submerged in the characters or in the society, they kept re-emerging, which is what I think happens constantly around us. So that is, I've lost the
you
question
answered.
somewhat, but
you answered.
Yeah, okay.
I do want to get back to Bade because I really liked Bade. But I just want this for the Mysuru audience. There is a mention of Mysuru silks in the book where Bade is dreaming. And he says, even when Ma slapped him, the touch was as soft as a Mysore pallu, And so I'm skipping ahead. There is an ode to saris in the book. It's like a love letter you've written to the different types of saris and weaves we have in India. I think you probably love fabrics and silks, right?
I do, but I think it's also probably a lot of sadness and longing and unfulfilled, longing, that I haven't worn those beautiful saris.
Oh.
So, and I've always dreamt of it, and I just kept getting older and older, and now I don't think I can learn to wear saris and carry them off beautifully. So I think it's an unfulfilled desire of mine, which is finding expression out there. But it just worked very beautifully, I mean, in my imagination, that Bade, who's the elder son, he's a bit disturbed at the, not a bit, he's a lot disturbed at the thought that his mother is now with the sister. In a traditional household, she should be with the son, you know. But she has gone to the daughter's house and is very happy in the daughter's house, and she's staying there. So he doesn't really go visiting her, but he pretends to himself that, you know, he had work that side, and he happened to want to take a pee somewhere near the apartment of the daughter. And then he knew that if he climbed onto this rock, he can probably peep inside, you know. And it was a time of the day when he will not be seen. It's getting dark outside. So he climbs onto the rock, and then he decides to climb on higher onto the tree. And of course, after that, I don't know why my imagination took me into some completely dreamlike.
Excellent.
Yeah. So he sort of saw his mother. Not in a sari, but wearing she'd given up saris because she's obviously been advised by her new friend. We discover that later or earlier, to give up things which are cumbersome, you know, and spoil her gait, and she's not free, and to wear just these, you know, like a kaftan or an abba. So this friend, who's a transgender, makes these beautiful simple gowns for her in which she feels completely free. So she's wearing one of those, and Bade is quite disturbed, and he thinks mother is only mother in a sari. So, and he's very tired, and he stands on the branch and he goes off to sleep. And when he's sleeping, he sees all the saris his mother used to wear. And he remembers the saris he had bought, he remembers the sari his father had got for his mother. So he's remembering all these beautiful saris, also a Mysuru silk and a Tangail and a Kanchivaram, and you know. And to complicate the theme yet further, there are crows on the tree who are watching this sleeping man and learning all about saris from his dream. So they keep, you know, taking these beautiful saris and pinning them onto the branch. So by the end of this the chapter, the tree is, you know, fluttering with these beautiful saris which I never got to wear.
I absolutely love that, you know, and learning about each different type of sari and the weaves. So I thought you must be loving silk.
Well, I do, and of course my mother has worn most beautiful saris, and all around me I have seen those beautiful saris, but
yeah,
I'm the deprived one. Yeah.
I thought of it as Bade's memory is a tree, and he's dreaming of each sari, and he's hanging the sari on the branches of his memory, you know. It felt that way too.
I think you are absolutely allowed to make another beautiful interpretation of the tree and the saris. Yeah.
You know, and from there, we come to Mom moving on to nighties, you know. So Rosie, Ma's transgender companion, says, wear a gown, I'll get it made. And then Beti says, a nightie, day and night? And Rosie says, not a nightie, a gown. Day gown and evening gown. She will turn into Queen Victoria, you know. And Buddy thinks his sister dresses oddly herself. Meena?
Yeah.
Why is she dressing Ma all funny?
Meena, what's happened to your jhola and your kurta?
Yeah. I brought a jola, but Shubha did not allow me to bring it on stage.
Yeah.
So, you know, so why is she dressing Ma all funny? Dervish type outfit to make her a laughing stock. Why did Ma renounce such beautiful saris and start dressing in sacks? You know, and now she walks around swish, swish. She'll fall. You know, so I think you have a lot of opinions about these dervish type outfits on mothers. Maybe. So much, I mean, you've given so many details about the embroidery and stuff like that, right?
Well, I don't know what to answer to that. I mean, it is a free kind of dress, and it is I think a lot of us seek that sort of freedom, you know, and more I think women, when they want to move around and not just sit pretty, want, you know, either to hitch up their saris or to get into clothes which will just leave them free. And this seems to be one wonderful way of doing it. But about the Darwish, I don't know where the Darwish came from, whether the Darwish came first or later, but let me just tell you a little anecdote I'm remembering. One of the writers, the writer I've dedicated this book to, Krishna Sopti, who was, doyen of Hindi literature, died, I think, 2 years ago, at the age of 96. And talking of your mother, well, she's your mother, she's my mother, she's also Krishna Sopti.
Mother.
Yeah, she's Krishna Sopti. Krishna Sopti was that kind of woman, so really we are surrounded by women like that. So Krishna Sopti was a remarkable person who remembered so many things about the younger writers and their attempts and everything. So she would always be very encouraging. I'd known her for a long time and I really revered her. And I would give her my book as soon as it came out. So she would ask me, the book was not yet ready, and she asked me how is the book proceeding? And I said, yes, I think getting done. And she said, have you thought of a title? So I said, yes, Ret Samadhi. And I had no great confidence. Actually confidence is not a huge thing for me. Whether I have it or not, if I've decided that it has to be Ret Samadhi, it will be Ret Samadhi. So even without confidence. So anyway, so I had thought it will be Ret Samadhi. And I told her, I said, I'm thinking of Ret Samadhi. And she thought for a moment. And she said, and this is literally what she did. She said, She said, Ret Samadhi. And she said, the Ret, which is light, and it'll fly up. And Samadhi, which is deep, and it'll go down. So she said, beautiful. And she did that. And I suddenly thought of the Sufi Darwish. So I thought, I of course decided it has to be Ret Samadhi thereafter. So I think the Darwish and the Sufi are probably, somewhere inspirations in me, even when I don't know it.
Makes sense now.
Yeah.
Really does. Yeah. And then you mentioned that Bade didn't go to his sister's house to see Ma, but he would send Bahu to get checks signed, to set the fixed deposit for renewed, all that, right? And I wonder it was because he didn't want to see Ma in sacks, because like you say, I have it here, Ma is Ma only in a sari. So, which brings me to a conversation that takes place in every household in India where there's a Ma, I think. Like the wife saying, आज तो काम वाली नहीं आई, आप जाके मम्मी से सिग्नेचर लाइए ना प्लीज. And the husband says, अरे मैं नहीं जाऊंगा, आजकल तेरी मम्मी विक्टोरिया महारानी जैसे गाउन पहन के चलती फिरती है, Or to say in Kannada, ಇವತ್ತು ಕೆಲಸದವ್ಳು ಬರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ನೀವು ಹೋಗಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ತಾಯಿ ಮನೆಯಿಂದ ಸಿಗ್ನೇಚರ್ ತಗೊಂಬಂದು ನನ್ನ ತಾಯಿ ಮನೆಯಿಂದ ಸಿಗ್ನೇಚರ್ ಅವ್ರು ಅಯ್ಯಪ್ಪ ನಾನು ಹೋಗಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ತಾಯಿ ಏನೋ ವಿಕ್ಟೋರಿಯಾ ಮಹಾರಾಣಿ ಥರ ಗೌನ್ ಹಾಕೊಂಡು ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತಾರ, ನನ್ನ ಕಳಿಸ್ಬೇಡ ನೀನು, So it is, I don't have a question in this.
And just very mundane, everyday things. But that's again the thing, the mundane contains the epic in it.
Yes.
Even a woman just sweeping the house, there's something about it which is coming down the centuries, just cleaning the place for her brood.
Yeah.
And looking after them and nurturing them. There's something in that activity which is really quite poetic and epic. So I think it's just the thing of the mundane and the epic coming together.
Correct. They're showing me the 10-minute thing, so I'll give time for questions. But just before that, I know, I need 4 hours. Where is she? So I just very quickly. You printed the book got published in 2018. So you had 4 years with that book very quietly to yourself until both you and the book became very public figures. So has that changed your equation with the book by any chance?
I think after the book, it's a different kind of rediscovery. It's very much made up of what lots of others are now telling me about the book, and I'm enjoying it. I'm sort of always complaining and enjoying. I'm always happy and tired, and this is how it has changed. And sometimes, I'm sorry, I'm repeating this. I've just said it recently, but honestly, I'm so surprised at what has happened. I mean, when I got onto the long list, I did not really know what. I mean, Booker was so much outside my world of Hindi and Hindi writing. So I didn't really fully understand what it was about. And people started telling me things, so I thought, okay, not a bad thing. When I got onto the short list, I thought, yes, by then I thought, yes, this is something. I mean, this is something good that has happened. What I didn't know was that I was sitting on a rocket. I didn't say that before, it's just come to me. I was sitting in a rocket, and the next thing that happened, I just went hurtling into space, and at the moment, I'm in some other planet, and I don't understand what's going on, and I'm very tired, happy, a bit alone, but also with very many new friends, and it's a strange time. It's nice.
Yeah. With all this tiredness, I think we are very grateful that you came.
No, it's very nice to be
And
here.
in the book you have channeled literature, music, everything. You also channel movies, right? So, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but Gabbar Singh. Arey wo Samba, kitne aadmi the? Maybe I should have asked you to do it. But ek line, ek chota sa line, maybe the crows could have said it. Can I say what that is?
Yeah, why not?
मेरे पास माँ है.
Yeah, I forgot. I wish you'd been there to read my manuscript.
I will stop. I have a lot more. I want to discuss borders. I want to discuss translations. I want to discuss so much, but I will stop now to give an opportunity to people to ask you questions. I won't selfishly take up all your time. So, and please, no anecdotes, only a question, okay? Yeah, is there a mic going around? Or? Make it a question, please. Yeah. Okay.
I just love your Hindi, and I think English is not going to do a patch of a justice for what you have written in Hindi. I have a request. Do you think you'll bring out an audio book with you reading in Hindi?
That'll have to be the rest of my life. It's a big book.
It's okay, we'd love it. We'd love it. And this is something that you can give Mysore back once you do it.
Well, maybe some parts of it. Yeah.
Anyone else with a question? There.
Since you're from theatre, and I am too, I ask you how much of theatre has seeped into your book in the idiom of expression, in the way you've expressed yourself through metaphors. How much did theatre play a role?
I'm sure a lot, and it's not just about this book. I mean, my experience with theatre is for the last several years. Actually, I don't consider myself a theatre person, and I think Meena very generously introduced me as the founder of the group. I'm not the founder of the group, I'm just one of the founding members. So, but the theatre that I do is with this entire group, and it's a very collaborative exercise. So initially they couldn't believe that I don't mind the fact that they do just anything with my words. I give them words and they just turn them around and just turn them upside down. And I've given them sad words and they make them angry words. And they thought I was very upset with all that. But actually I was fascinated at how mercurial words are, and there's nothing fixed there. There's nothing rigid about words. And I think what theatre taught me is, I don't know if I can explain this very well, but the redundancy of words in art and literature, that we just think everything has to be done through words, but no, it's not just words. So I think over the years I learned lots of things from theatre. Dhwani, certainly. Cuts, you know, that you don't have to just spell out everything, you know, you can, there's a lot of importance of gaps and silences and what's behind the words and the cadences and other things in art, you know, even in literature, which depends so heavily on words. It's not only about words. So I think that's the big takeaway from theatre.
Thank you, madam. Here, one question. You are so articulate in English, and so many regional writers are not as articulate as you. Do you think it is an advantage to face especially the global audience? And how do you feel about the whole, whether it is an advantage?
Well, it is an advantage in places where English is the link language. So certainly I mean, contrary to what all of you might think, I got the Booker, I think, just about a month ago. It was the last week of May, so I think we are just into July, a little more than a month. So I haven't had time to really address such a large global audience yet. But certainly it is an important language, and where English is the language of the audience, it is an advantage. But there will be many places where I won't have that advantage. And I think I also believe there is a disadvantage that I don't have other languages, particularly other Indian languages. So I won't say it's just an unmixed blessing. It is, English is an important language today. So sure, I mean, I'm getting the advantages of that. And Booker would never have known my book if it had not come out in English. So I have to say thank you to English, but I think I won't say it's the best thing that's happened to me. I can tell you lots of things that I have lost because I was taken so much in the direction of English education. In fact, even rediscovering my language, you know, became a long story. And I'm happy I chose Hindi, and I, you know, got it back, and in some ways became very comfortable in it and could write in it. But sure, I mean, English took away a lot of things as well.
So, is your book being translated into other regional languages? Would you know about that?
It's happened, but you know, it's just too soon. It's just happened, yeah. It's just starting to happen, yeah.
My question is related to the translation. I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, okay, yes.
Here.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So it's such a glare in my face.
With the lights.
So
I still don't know where she.
I'm right. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Now I see you. Yeah.
So forgetting the Booker part of it, as your original novel in Hindi, how did it feel to kind of give it for translation? I mean, it's almost giving your thing to somebody else to nurture. How involved were you in the process of translation? And what is your how satisfied are you with with what your book is in Hindi, that it has been translated to English? Because many times, it happens that there are two excellent books, the original and the translation. But I just wanted to know how similar are the two books?
See, I haven't sat down and done a study of, evaluating the two and how well it has been translated, etc. But I'm going a lot by what people have said. And let me say, at the moment, the Booker jury is one big measure, because they know nothing about me, my culture, whatever that is, and the book in Hindi. And they read the English, and the kind of comments they have made are just absolutely the kind that would make me blush from top to toe. So,
well deserved.
Well, Daisy also
deserves
that. So I think she has done a very good job. But when I get a little uncomfortable when people say that, there are two wonderful books. I'm sure they're not so unrelated from each other, that they become two different books. Sure, she has to do a good job of the translation. I mean, I always think, suppose Daisy this book has been written with a lot of humor. Sadness, but I think a lot of humor also, and I'm Well, anyway, so there's a lot of humor there. And I just think, suppose I had got a translator who was very well equipped in the language, but did not have that humor, she would have ruined this book completely. So I'm very happy that, you know, Daisy loved playing with the language much as the original did, and loved the humor and did things with it. So I think she's got the atma, you know, of it, and she's very faithful to that. कुछ differences होंगे ही, cadences में differences होंगे, sounds में differences होंगे, which I like to keep a distance from.
I'm sorry, I think we are out of time. I know people would love to. I don't think so, because I'm already getting the stink eye from this side. So you can ask later on, maybe, in the lounge or
That's
something. I'm
absolutely
so
fine.
sorry about that. We needed more time for this. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Really, it's been wonderful.
Indeed, that was a very interesting discussion. Left a lot of blanks and spaces and no speech because you put so many things in perspective. The fact that many older people related to your book from, you know, different cultures, inanimate objects who witnessed events become part of this narrative. That also was very interesting. And the story of Krishna Shopti's action, the Wraith and the Samadhi, was very interesting. Definitely we would love to read your book, and many more that would come in future. On behalf of the Mysuru Literature Festival, we thank the panelists, both Sita and Geetanjali Shree, and the audience.